maximizer to make it really loud without fucking up the transients. Me being a lefty liberal libtard. Have a great weekend. I have no idea what you're talking about. The problem is I make music that is constantly refused by labels. I can get a nice bass end. Hey guys, welcome to the Kane audio vlog. It's Friday, it's time for another Ask Me Anything. Usual rules apply, comment anything you want below this video and I will get back to you in next week's video. Before I get on to last week's video, house admin, is there anything I need to cover? Yes, so first of all, a big welcome to anybody listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, because I thought after several requests, a few people have said that they really like these AMA sessions and they want to be able to listen to it on the way to work or in work or whatever as a podcast. So I thought, yeah, actually I'll just rip the audio from the last 10 episodes. And I've submitted those as podcasts and started getting it all together for Spotify and Apple Music. They are now available, which means this is the first episode that is actually being recorded and delivered as a podcast in its own right. So welcome to all of you new listeners. You will not be able to ask me anything unless you go to youtube.com/Kane Audio UK and find the latest AMA video and comment below that. So for the time being at least, I'm still only going to be answering questions on last week's YouTube video. So yeah, if anyone wants to get involved and ask me a question, which is awesome and I fully encourage it, then yeah, do that on YouTube. I think that's all I need to mention for this week's house admin. I've started trying to write things down now, because life is chaos. Yeah, so I've got links here that I will drop below this video, so if anyone wants to be listening to the audio versions of these videos on Spotify or Apple Music. Also, by the way, if anyone's a user of some other podcast app, feed, submission thing, then let me know, because I really only know of Spotify and Apple Music. And when I say Apple Music, I think that one covers a lot of Android users. I'm an Android user myself. I think it's Podcast Addict on my phone, which scans the Apple Music podcasts anyway. So I think that's going to be covering everybody. But if you use some random app and you can't find the Kane Audio AMA podcast in whatever podcast app you use, let me know and I'll try and get it submitted there, because it's fairly straightforward once it's been submitted the first time. Other than that, yeah, it's been a bit of a mad week, to be honest. I've finished off 2 remixes. Yeah, 2 remixes, and a bunch of other jobs have come in for some TV sync work, so that's good. It's just been crazy busy, to be honest. And what else? There was something I actually wanted to mention. No, can't remember. Oh, also, we've now got the release date of my remake of Underworld Res. That is August the 2nd, so keep your eyes peeled for that. There is a tiny little clip of one of the first draft versions where I just kind of laid down the synths, and I think I sort of did a kind of half breakdown drop type thing and chucked it on my SoundCloud. So if you do want to have a listen to that, then that's about all you can hear at the moment. But obviously I'll be putting out bigger clips over time. Anyway, I am waffling. Let's get on with this. Straight to last week's video. Deadmau 5, the Mexican Deadmau. Keys, high five. Hi Dom, the results from exams came great. Excellent, that is good to hear, because I know you said a few weeks ago that you had exams coming up. Thanks for explaining the whole loudness thing. I got to mention that I saw Virtual Riot's technique for making his tracks really loud without ruining the mix. So basically he used FabFilter's MB compressor. MB compressor, I don't know what maximizing buffer. I don't know what the MB stands for, but anyway, took away the sub a little, and then so multi-band compressor. Oh, of course, yeah, there we go. Took away the sub a little and then used Isotope Ozone 7 maximizer to make it really loud without fucking up the transients, and he got pretty decent loudness. Interesting technique, to be honest. We'll try it out. Cheers. Okay, yeah, so getting stuff loud, multi-band compressor, taking away the sub. Yeah, so this is something I do in my master chain before it even really, I mean, okay, so I think there's a compressor that I have just to really catch any spikes or anything. So I mean, I have a gain reduction of pretty much nothing. It might hit 1 dB a gain reduction, so let's pretend that's not there. Next in the chain I have an equalizer, and I will scoop out, okay, depending on the track and the sub frequencies of the track, but generally speaking, anything below sort of 50 hertz I'll kind of scoop out with an EQ, with a high pass filter, generally speaking, because I think anything below 50 hertz is almost a waste, unless, again, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule, so I'm sort of trying to word it as carefully as I can. But generally speaking, the vast majority of home hi-fis, car audio, as much as they claim to be able to play stupid frequencies like 20 hertz, 40 hertz is about as low as they really go. Anything below 40 and it's just farting, basically. It's not really reproducing that frequency very well. And in fact, if you look at studio monitors, they're probably the most honest specs you'll ever see on speakers, and most of them will not try and claim anything near sort of 20-30 hertz. So because of that, scooping out a lot of the sub below, say, sort of 50 hertz is worth doing, because sometimes you'd be surprised how much maybe a kick drum or a bass line or something has a load of energy below sort of 50 hertz that you weren't really hearing anyway, because your speakers weren't reproducing it. So by scooping that out, you're actually freeing up a load of space for other compressors to do their work a bit easier later on in the chain. So yeah, I do very similar to that. And then what did he use? Isotope Ozone 7 maximizer. I've only recently looked at the ozone maximizers. I've heard good things about the new versions. I think it's version 4, which is in ozone 8. And I've heard good things about the algorithms, because they put preferences in the maximizer. They put a preference to certain frequencies depending on how loud the other frequencies are. So it's kind of like an intelligent multi-band compressor, which sounds good. I've not really tried it yet, but I have heard good things about it. Maybe I'll look into that with you guys at some point in a different video for this channel. So yeah, so I think that's probably a good way of getting a track loud. Like I say, it's I think I mentioned this last week. I'll just quickly say it again, but you know, the thing with loudness is that it's really only important for DJs playing in nightclubs these days, and even then, you've got a gain control. You've got, you know, you've got the channel gain on your mixer, so it's not really that important to make it super loud. But when it comes to tracks being released on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, you know, streaming places, even YouTube to an extent. You know, they'll be recompressed or decompressed or regained to adjust for that balance anyway. So if you made it super loud, they're only going to bring the volume down, or if you made it super quiet, they're going to bring the volume up. So it's kind of pointless in making things too loud these days. On that note, a friend of mine recently signed up to YouTube Premium and has said that the music on there has been super compressed and is actually at the point of distortion. So bear that in mind as well, if it means anything to anyone. Deadly Custard, Keys, high five. Nice one, Dom. Enjoyed that technical insight into loudness metering. Did you manage to catch much of Glasto in the end? I caught a tiny bit of Liam Gallagher. I'm not a huge fan, but I did like a lot of the Oasis original songs. So, you know, I caught him doing Wonderwall, for example, that I had to watch. Chemical Brothers, obviously, the legends that they are. Who else? Oh, actually, I watched some of the Stormzy things. So I'd kind of seen loads of people talking about how amazing it was. And I'd seen a lot of, me being a lefty liberal libtard, a lot of the left-wing newspapers were kind of saying how culturally important it was. And I kind of read the headlines going, yeah, okay, that's just, you know, you being whatever. But actually, then I watched his performance and I thought, holy shit, yeah, this is culturally important. This is, he blew me away, to be honest. What a great performance that was. That was true Glastonbury through and through. And I love it when an artist can just shock me. It's just the unexpected, I guess. Another one that comes to mind is Beyonce. Never really been a fan of Beyonce's music. It's not really my thing. She's got a great voice and whatever, but it is what it is. But when I saw her at Glastonbury in, was it 2011, 12, 13, something like that? And I remember seeing that performance and thinking, shit, this woman owns the stage. She's owning the whole festival. What a performance that was. So I do like that. Who else did I catch? I think that's probably about it. There's a couple of others that I'm still meaning to see, but being in Britain, we've got the iPlayer, so we can watch them all whenever we want. Also, a small but notable highlight for me was Mark Ronson on the keys with Yebba. What a vocal. New fan here. Do you know what? I'm not really a fan of Mark Ronson's. I kind of feel like the production standards are a bit weak, and I'm probably going to regret saying that, but from what I've heard, someone tried playing me one of his albums once, and I don't know if it was just a poor quality album or what, but it just kind of felt a bit dry and empty, and great songwriting and vocal and everything like that, but I just kind of felt like it was the production didn't match the writing quality, and it left me feeling a bit empty. I don't know. Andrew Hollis, keys, high five. When is your version of Res being released? Oh, there we go. I've just talked about that. Or have I missed it? Ari, my last comments. That's a different one. Right. So Res, so August the 2nd, it is confirmed. It'll be on Wartone Records. I'll read my last comments. I used markup as YouTube uses pairs of asterisks to bold text. Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend. I have no idea what you're talking about on the bold bit. Okay. Fan87, keys, high five. Hey Dom, first, I'm super fan of your EP. Sounds more and more great. You definitely has a universe, and I jump into it at every release. Thank you very much. That does mean a lot, because I do kind of have, as you say, my own universe. I kind of, I know I've said this before, so I'm not going to say too much, but with each EP, I try to have a theme in there somewhere. And I don't just mean musical theme, but kind of narrative theme. And usually that's kind of in the title. So, with my last EP or EP before last, Structures, it was about those little intricate structures joining together to make a bigger whole. And this one was about being stoic, and to be stoic is to sort of endure certain things, so that was kind of me enduring my own experimentation outside of the rules. There's a whole thing to it. In fact, I've just done, I should have said this in house admin, I've just done another Sonic Academy tutorial series on Stoic, and I explain the name in that, along with how I came about those chords, which is a really long-winded little story of playing with scales and outside of scales and breaking rules and learning rules to then break the rules, blah blah blah. But I'll talk more about that when I get a release date and whatever. So yes, there we go. Here is my frustration and question. I make music since 2016 and it's my reason of life now. I want to live financially with my passion in the near future. I've learned myself arrangement, sound design, mixing, mastering. I make every sound myself, from samples I record and sounds I synthesize, and today I have more than 50 tracks ready to release, with amazing feedback from pros, artists and engineers. The problem is I make music that is constantly refused by labels because it's not compatible with their art direction. I'm losing faith to see my music released on big mid labels that I love, even if I'm not discouraged to make music, which, to be clear, is a mix between techno and progressive house, but not strictly 808 909 Hats 303 acid trendy techno, and not Sawwave's melodic, melancholic progressive house, but it's a blend that I never hear anywhere. That's why I think he can please a specific audience, friends not included. Question: how can an artist find a label that can like the style he makes? It's a tough case, but to be honest, half desperate call. Do you know what? That's a good question, and it's probably one of the biggest questions of this day and age for any sort of upcoming artist. And it's not an easy one to answer because there isn't, there's no hard and fast rule as to how any of this works. The first thing I always recommend to any new artist is go on Beatport, find whatever genre is closest to yours, and I sympathise with anyone that struggles to do that because I myself struggle to do that. I end up, when I'm buying tracks for my DJ gigs, for example, I'll listen to the melodic house and techno bit first because I kind of think that's probably closest to what I do, and they're basically all the same, and I think, oh, that's not, no, mine's a bit more techno-y than that. And then I go to the techno genre and that's just full on 909 snares, and that's nothing like mine. But then every now and then you find the odd hidden gem that's kind of like mine, and then I end up going to tech house and I'm like, no, that's way too funky. But then every now and then there's a hidden gem. So I kind of keep going between those three genres and the progressive house, 4 genres, and I'm kind of somewhere in the middle of them all, I guess, with my music. So it's a tricky one, but if you keep going through those and just go through the top 100 and just have a listen and find tracks that are similar to yours. And by that I mean, imagine you are DJing in a club and you need to find 20 tracks that are not identical, obviously, but very similar and can create a journey that is really constricted in what direction it goes. So they need to sound very similar. They need to have a familiar sound. The reason I'm saying all of this is because once you find that and do that on a regular basis, you're going to start seeing the same record labels come up time and time again, hopefully, because those are the record labels that are closest to your music. And so imagine building a set with your track slap bang in the middle of the set, and that's the way you're going to find where your track sandwiches itself. One of the other things, and I've been meaning to kind of do a video on this recently, is how people view themselves. And the reason I haven't done a video is because I haven't managed to word it yet without sounding weird. But I feel like there's a lot to talk about when it comes to self-perception in any kind of artistic industry. So, there are a lot of producers out there. Clearly, I'm not talking about you because I don't know your music, but in general, I hear a lot of music producers who claim that their work is ready for, let's say, Mousetrap, for example, and they'll show me their music, and I think this is nowhere near ready for Mousetrap. This is nothing like what you hear on Mousetrap, and it's very difficult as an artist, and I'm very aware of this with my own music at times, where I kind of feel like I have what's it called, imposter syndrome sometimes, where I think my music doesn't sound right for Mousetrap, and why am I able to release on Mousetrap? I don't get it, and I feel like I'm not worthy of that. But when you listen to other artists on the label, they are hugely talented, and I think, but there is a huge pattern in a lot of music producers and artists of any shape and size and industry, perhaps believing a little too much in their music. Now, I'm not saying this is true for you, because I genuinely don't know. I haven't heard your music, so I don't know. But if you've got 50 tracks ready to release and you don't have any record labels offering to sign it, then maybe those 50 tracks aren't ready to release. And I hate to be that guy, but maybe it's what you need to hear. I don't know. But I would say if you've got 50, I mean, I'll give you an example. I am a professional musician. I make all of my money from my music. I currently have 0 tracks ready to release, because if I had 1 track ready to release, I'd probably get it released. The only tracks I have ready to release are scheduled for release. Things like my Res track, for example, they're already scheduled for release. So I don't know if maybe because you're talking about you're making a mix of genres, and personally I think that's a good thing, but is it working? Are you doing it in a way that people are going to like, or are you doing it in a way that's just being different? And I think that's an important thing, and maybe there's a whole other video in this as well, is that I always encourage people to do something different. I'm 100% supportive of anybody doing something that's different to everybody else. I think that's absolutely admirable. It's respectable. It's something we should all try and strive to do. But there is a difference with making something just that different for the sake of being different. So as an example, I recently was sent a piece of work that is trying to be a mix of 2 or 3 genres that actually kind of don't really mix. And I remember listening to it going, I feel uncomfortable with this. It's not working for me. And we talk about artists like Deadmau5, like Skrillex, who kind of managed to merge. So Deadmau5, for example, he really kind of made trance melodies in progressive house BPMs and tempos and grooves. And at the time, nobody had really done that, and it just worked. It worked fantastically, and I remember thinking, holy shit, this is it. This is what we need. You know, this is the future. And it did become the future. It just felt right. And if you look at Skrillex, he took what was already a booming scene in London, the dubstep scene, which was, you know, clue is in the title, dub step, was really dubby and came out of the whole reggae breaks scene, but it was really dark and underground. You didn't have wobble bass lines, or there's maybe a little bit of LFO on a filter somewhere, but it wasn't as we know it, and it certainly wasn't the whole, you know, robot voice thing. But Skrillex took the kind of production techniques and songwriting styles from heavy metal, I guess, and rock music, and he brought that into dubstep and made this whole thing, this whole, what we now, I suppose, call bro step, and it just worked. It felt right, and I think that was a huge boundary breaking thing that he did. And clearly both of those artists have credit where credit's due, have become superstars off the back of it, and that's great. But that doesn't mean that merging any two genres is going to work. It might not work. You know, you might be taking what's subjectively the bad bits of both genres and putting them together, and everyone's just going, ew, what's that? So look, like I say, I don't know your music, so I can't comment on that, but I understand your frustration. And I would say if you have 50 tracks ready to release, then something somewhere is not going right. Whether, you know, it could be that you're maybe just submitting it to the wrong labels. You know, record labels these days, a lot of them really try to develop their sound. So if you're not doing this exact kind of sound for this record label, they're not going to sign you. You know, you could have the greatest track on earth, but if it doesn't have the right bleeps or the right bloops, then, you know, that label's not going to sign you these days. So it could just be something like that. So I would say, have a look at each step. If you truly believe that your music is 100% good enough for major release, then you need to look at all the other steps in your chain. So for example, what labels are you sending them to? Are you sending them to the right labels? How are you approaching the labels? Are you just spamming them saying, this is going to be massive, check out my big hit, you want it? Or are you actually starting a conversation and being a friendly human being? You know, are you going to nightclubs and maybe speaking to other artists of a similar genre or whatever? You know, are you helping out in some sort of online community or something? You know, I feel like there's a whole load of stuff that can be done. So yeah, the only thing I would say is don't give up. In addition to this, the other thing I'll say is that one of the first things you said is you've been making music since 2016. Now, I recently did... Oh, that's another thing I should have mentioned in House Admin. I'll bring it up next week because hopefully we'll have a date for then. But I recently did a podcast interview with Chasing Creativity. If you haven't checked out the Chasing Creativity podcast, you should do so, because I got asked to join them. It's a fairly new podcast, and they got some great artists, great interviews. Go check it out. So anyway, talking about that, and I was saying, I was asked about, you know, my Mousetrap releases and all of these things, and I was saying it was interesting that you sort of mentioned that you've followed me since X, Y, and Z, because to me that's just a really short passage of time compared to my entire career. And so you've been making music since 2016. Well, I've been making music since 1993, something like that. So it takes a long time to get to mid-sized to large record labels, and I think that's the point I'm trying to make. I'm just going to hit pause on the camera because it's about to hit the 30-minute mark, and there we go. Yeah, so I think 2016, 17, 18, 19, 3 years. 3 years you've been making music. For most people, and myself included, and this is another thing that I think is important, is I don't think I am naturally talented when it comes to music. I work my ass off when it comes to music. To get things right takes so much effort. It doesn't, as much as, for example, when I'm doing these tutorials on the tracks I make, I'm quite careful to make them as compact as possible, and I don't want to be spending 16 hours redesigning something, but that's actually how it is in real life. So for example, I've just done one of the remixes I've just done. I must have sent it to 3 of my absolute best friends who have different studios and ears that I know and trust, and one of the 3 came back saying, I think there's a bit too much sub in the kick. And I must have then sent it back and forth 10 times, just trying to carve out that tiny little bit of over sub in the kick drum. And I knew that meanwhile there were other things, and every time I did it, there'd be something else that changed in the balance of the mix, and it felt like an eternal nightmare. I must have mixed that track down, that remix, and if I'm totally honest, I'm still not happy with it. But the mix, I must have done final versions at least 15 times over a period of about 3 months. That's how long it took to get that remix to a standard that was at least acceptable for me to then give to the record label. It's not even acceptable by my own personal standard. I still think I screwed up the mix, and I listen back to it now and I still think that's not right. It's not there. And this is after 20 years of producing music, months and months of stewing over the same track over and over again, and hours and hours and hours trying to carve this kick drum to become something that I knew it should or could be. So if you've been producing music for 3 years, you need to understand that unless you are a musical savant or genius, then 3 years is not a long time. Yes, there are producers out there who become famous overnight, but they don't really become famous overnight. They just have very clever marketing teams, and, well, let's be honest, half of them are ghostwriters, so who have been doing it for 20 years, and they've got the talent. So don't get too frustrated. I know this has become one of my famous long rants now, but don't get too frustrated with yourself, because you've only been producing for 3 years, and that's important to remember, that most people who get signed to a medium to large record label will have been producing for maybe 10 years. It's only the guys who are just super talented and just naturally gifted that manage to get onto these huge labels within a case of weeks or months, so yeah, I think I've given you a lot to think about there, but like I say, at the end of the day, I want you to think positively, because it took me, in fact, even compared, the first track I ever submitted to Mousetrap was probably 3 years before my first Mousetrap release. And looking back, the first track I sent to Mousetrap, I only sent maybe 2 that didn't get signed. But looking back at both of those tracks, if I'm honest, they were probably wrong for Mousetrap. They probably were nowhere near the right thing for Mousetrap. I just felt that I was passionate about them at the time, and I felt like, hey, this could be a Mousetrap thing, and I sent it to him, and it, you know, either didn't get a response or got rejected or whatever. But it's only in hindsight that now I've kind of progressed several years onwards, and I can look back at that and go, yeah, you know what, I can see why they didn't take that track, because that wasn't right. Now I know more from being on the inside. That wasn't really what I should have done. So yeah, do not get dismayed. I think, you know, just keep at it. But it's all about that fine tuning. You know, like I say, but I would question if you think you've got 50 tracks ready to release, that to me sounds unnerving, because I think if you've got 50 tracks that are being rejected by record labels, and I know that's not exactly what you're saying, but if you've got 50 tracks that are being rejected by record labels, then maybe you're doing something wrong and not them. But what that is, I don't know without hearing the music or whatever. However, I would say, and again, this is full disclosure, I'm a pro on this website, but I would recommend it for anyone, and don't choose me, choose someone else. But I would recommend going to audiu.net, AUDIU, audiu.net. Yeah, and get your tracks. You can submit your tracks. Different pros have different prices, and you can basically submit your track and pay anything from, I think, like £10 to £50, or some of them are in the hundreds. I'm not sure I'd pay that much, but you can get a professional from the industry to review your music, and they'll give you full feedback. And it covers everything from, you know, the sounds and sound design to arrangement to the mix down to the song idea and any vocals, whatever. So I think that's something that's probably maybe worth doing for you. Yeah, because sometimes it's tricky to get a real opinion of stuff, especially if somebody has no reason to piss you off. And I know that sounds almost counterintuitive, but if you send a track to your mum is going to go, I love it, it's amazing, it's the best thing I've ever heard, because it's your mum. If you send it to your best friend is either going to go, it's shit, but I don't know why, or it's great and I don't know why. So, but if you can send it to an engineer or a producer or even ghostwriter, someone along those lines, they tend to be the people who are more likely to give you a more honest answer. And if you're paying for that honesty, then to be honest, I think you get more honesty in return for that. I hope. At least that's how I treat the audio system. I give sometimes brutally honest feedback, because I feel like that's what you're paying for. You know, if you're paying for a service, you're going to get that full service, and I think, yeah, hopefully then you're able to learn off the back of that. Anyway, I've ranted for ages on that one. This is going to be like 6 hours long, and I've got stuff to do today, so let's get on with it. Yanis Lukmelis, hi Dom, great info as always. Keys, high five, you're welcome. Ricky John, hi Dom, hope all is well. It is, thank you. Great info as always. Keep meaning to comment and forgetting. Well, you're commenting now. I was going to ask about how you process the sub 37 and try it on the Grandma, but that's been done. Yeah, I think I answered that last week actually. I did recently buy into Kick 2, great plugin. I suck at it. I can get a nice bass end, but not so much a mid top end. Any tips? Yes. Mid, pull the body out in time slightly. So where you start, if you imagine a graph of, say, millisecond 0 at the beginning, and it starts at the very top frequency of, let's say, 20 kilohertz, and it quickly, within a few microseconds, comes down to an acceptable couple of hundred hertz. Pull that out in time, drag it out rightwards in time. That's your body, basically. but also shape it in there as well. Chuck in a load of extra automation points and shape it up, down, left, right, whatever. You'll find it, and just play it by ear. Just keep playing and playing and playing on its own, and you'll find that body in there somewhere. Sometimes it works at 150 hertz. Sometimes it works at 400 hertz. It's it depends on the shape and size, everything. So it's a bit difficult. I can't give you exact figures. Secondly, for your transient, to me, that is all about the sample. In fact, I probably have an instance of Kick here because I've got Bitwig open. Lo and behold, there it is. Yeah, so you've got click 1 and click 2. Right now on this kick, don't know what it is. Oh, that's where is it?
Earth is the third planet from the sun, and the only astronaut.
And not that I asked anything of you. Alexa, shut up. That's enough of you, thanks. Where is the kick? Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, so that kick, I'm using click 7. I like that. Yeah, so the transients of a kick is really all about the click, the sample that you use. I'm using click 7. I'm assuming click 7 is. I've just said that as though I should know, but let's have a look. Yeah, that is. Oh, okay. Oh, that's a Dom Kane click, apparently. So there we go. I think I did do some presets for Sonic Academy for Kick 2. I don't know if they came with. To be honest, it was a long time ago, and I can't remember. But I could be wrong. I think the Dom Kane presets came with Kick when you buy it. Otherwise, they might be extra. If they're extra, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I know there was probably, I think I can't remember. I may have done, say, 10 clicks. And of the 10, there were 2 of them where I remember thinking, oh, hell yeah, these are good clicks. If you can... if you're into clicks, then those are the clicks to have. So yeah, I would. That's basically my recommendation for the mid-top end. There we go. Dreamstate42, Keys, high five. Have a great weekend. And you. Zombo. We're getting there now, guys. By the way, there's literally, I think this is the last major comment. I can tell the difference between MP3 and lossless. Weird flex, but okay. Yes, I think... and maybe not most people, but I know I can definitely tell the difference between MP3 and lossless. This was talking about something I can't remember, but I was saying I wasn't a lossless snob. I don't demand stuff to be in lossless. But I think I said the difference between 16-bit and 24-bit WAV. I can't tell the difference, and nor should anyone, to be honest. And anyone who says they can is probably lying, or some weird savant. Yeah, the difference between MP3 and lossless is certainly, if you're talking like 128K MP3, then there is quite a distinctive difference. But 320 kbps MP3 versus 16-bit WAV, I mean, it's noticeable if you're in a decent sound system with some decent ears. It's noticeable, but does it make me feel different? No, it doesn't. Anyway, I have a question, Dom. Where can I find vocals like the one Eddie uses in his tracks, like Untitled Forever? I have tried some from Production Master, but not a huge fan of them. Had to make an edit. Okay. I don't know about Eddie's vocals. My guess is that he has a vocalist friend. Otherwise, Loopmasters have got some good vocals, actually. If you guys use Loopmasters, or maybe even Loop Cloud, which is a great plugin, I actually was playing with that the other day. Funnily enough, using it to try and find a vocal. So with Loop Cloud, you can go through the Loopmasters library of samples of which there are bazillions, and you can set it to automatically change the key and tempo and everything. So you can drop in the Loop Cloud plugin on your track and play your track and keep looping a 16-bar loop or whatever, and then you can just start scrolling through loads of vocals from the Loop Masters library, and it will automatically pitch correct and everything for you, and it does it very well. So I would highly recommend that just as a system, because it's awesome, and that's the future of sample libraries. As for finding vocals, yeah, I mean, Loop Masters is pretty much the only place I go for samples, really. Vocals, I think it doesn't really matter what sample library you go to. Vocals are always tricky to find, especially good vocals, ones that aren't just generic shit. But yeah, to be honest, nothing beats getting a vocalist in and doing it from scratch. And I know that's a ball ache, especially when sometimes all you want is just a couple of quick lines. But yeah, it's something I'm trying to get into, and it's something so I think most long-time followers of these videos and now podcasts will know that I've started writing an album at the moment, and I really want some vocals in the album. I want to have some fairly substantial vocals in there, to be honest, because I feel like an album is more worthy of serious artistic direction. So I feel your pain in trying to find vocals, but I think the best way really is to get some vocalists in and do it properly. I think that's the only way I'm going to be able to do it anyway. You've also replied to your own comment. More questions. How was your experience making music or sound design for games? I know you have done for VR game. How is it done? And did you have to learn any programming languages or basics of Unity or something like that? Have a great weekend and keys. High five. Yes, so I used UE4 and Unity, and Fmod was the kind of the what do they call it, the middleware. So you do all your sound design, production, whatever, do that in Bitwig as standard. Then it would be a case of bouncing out stems and moving that to Fmod, and Fmod is basically like a workstation that communicates with Unity or UE4 or whatever. So you've basically got two kind of industry standards. There's Fmod and there's WWise. Both of them are very similar. I went with Fmod. I can't remember why. I think it was something to do with it being free up to a certain point. And then so you don't really need to learn code, but I wasn't involved in the full implementation of these things. I was only getting as far as assigning any effects and things to it within Fmod. So for example, let's say footsteps, designing the sounds of footsteps you do in Bitwig, or obviously you do field recording and piece them together and layer bits in over Bitwig, and then you'd bounce out your individual footsteps and whatever, and then you'd have in Fmod you'd have like a randomizer that would just randomize the footsteps, so it's not always the same sequence of footsteps. If you've got, say, 15 or 20 footsteps for one pair of shoes, then it would randomize between those. But if that pair of shoes was then going to walk through a hallway, you then need to add reverb and things like that. So you wouldn't do any of that in Bitwig, because once you've bounced that out as a WAV with reverb on, then that becomes its own nightmare if you want to take the reverb off. So you add the reverb in Fmod and then assign parameters, so you can dial things in or switch things on or off or whatever. So as that pair of shoes walks into the hallway, the dial lifts up, which allows the reverb. So excuse me. So I would design the sounds in Bitwig, import them into Fmod, assign all the parameters in things like hallway, and then assign the reverb and whatever. But from there it would be up to other game dev coders to do the rest. I have no idea what happens beyond there. I think people who do game audio for a living as a full-time job, I think they do all of that, and if you wanted that to be your full-time job, you'd have to learn that and how to do all of that. Personally, I didn't, first of all because I didn't need to, secondly because of time constraints on the particular projects I was working on, so I just never got that far into it, and other devs took over from that point. So for me it was fairly straightforward. It was just doing the sound stuff. I would like to have learned more, to be honest, but there just wasn't the time for me to sit there and screw things up time and time again, costing other people money. But it is definitely something I'd like to get into over time, but I don't think I could do it as a full-time job, if I'm honest. It was a lot of work, and it was pretty stressful as well. So yeah, there we go. I would say check out WWise and check out Fmod. Download Unity and Unreal Engine. Pick your favourite. I think I went with Fmod and Unreal Engine as my first choice, so learn those first. Don't try and learn all of them at the same time. But I think with Unreal Engine, for example, you can download like template games, so a man that walks in a desert and picks up a car, and there's loads of tutorial videos online as well. But yeah, you can start with like template stuff, so then you can go into Fmod and go, right, okay, or even as far back as Bitwig or Ableton or whatever, and go, right, I need some footsteps, I need a car engine, I need this, that and the other, and then you can chuck them all into Fmod, then connect Fmod to that patch game in Unreal Engine, and then start assigning parameters. And yeah, it's the only way to learn really, is through experimenting. So yeah, I highly recommend it though. It's especially if you're on the geeky side of life, then it doesn't get much more geeky than that. And there we go. Rob Marconi, keys, high five. St. Nicholas, keys, high five. Thank you very much to everyone who's made it this far into the video. It has been a big one this week, she said. So to prove you've made it this far into the video, comment with the word miles, because there's a video here that says, how insane is it to buy an M5 with 409,000 miles? I'd say that's pretty insane. So there we go. Again, thank you very much for making it this far in. Thanks to everyone for all the comments. You know, it's you guys that control the content of these videos, which is great, and now podcasts. So thank you to anyone who's listening to the podcast this far in. You deserve your own kind of medal, especially as you can't see what I'm doing or looking at or whatever either. So that's weird. But hey, you guys wanted it. You guys got it. Yeah, I think that's it for this week. So I will see you same again this time next week. Cheers.